Today we are diving into IELTS Speaking Part 2, which is really the heart and soul of the speaking test. If you're looking to get a 7+ score, I'm going to give you some rock solid tips that you can apply to any question. Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Kevin. I am both an English teacher and writer who is very happy to share my experience and knowledge with students that are native and non-native speakers alike. Today, I'm going to show you some tips and strategies that you can use for any IELTS Part 2 card. And I am using one of the old topics. For those of you who are on top of the IELTS exam, you know the topics change every 4 months. These are the topics now that are running from September to December. But guys, that does not matter at all, because I've devised a bit of a strategy that, like I said, you can use for any topic whatsoever. I want to just kind of recap and emphasize that if you haven't checked out my first 3 videos, it's kind of the base camp of knowledge before we start our ascent on this mighty Everest of English. Go back, check those out. Learn about fluency. It's really, really key to building your confidence. Learn about speaking like a reporter, incorporating those 5 W's, and also adding details, giving details by being clear, which means painting with words and letting people see everything you say. Not to be a broken record, but we need to know how we're getting our score on IELTS Speaking, and I just want to again review very, very swiftly the 4 evaluation criteria that we are looking to fulfill for our examiners. Number 1, well, we're looking for the lexical resources. That is your vocabulary, and it comes from idiomatic expressions, high vocabulary, power words, things like that. Power words are using big words like exhausted rather than tired. You'll also be graded on fluency. Fluency is 2 things: cohesion, connectedness of your speech, and coherency, which is having it be clear and logical. For grammatical range and accuracy, we've been practicing this a bit. We want to do basically a couple things. We want to speak in mixed tenses, which we're going to emphasize in today's class. And we also want to build complex sentences that have multiple clauses. So we can use subordinate conjunctions, and we'll get into that a little bit. For pronunciation, I'm not going to go into the details. You can just kind of emulate and copy what I do. There are a few main stresses, right? We have the single stresses, the phonetic sounds. We have the word stress, which is which syllable is stressed. We have the sentence stress, which is which word is stressed in the sentence. The lowdown is always just a summary of the format, the structure of things, as well as the main study tips that we are going to sink our teeth into for each class. I want to talk a little about the format and structure, and for those of you who have been studying or taken the IELTS test before, some of this may not be new. So you can see the format right in front of you. We're talking about the card with 1 topic. Basically, you're going to be a reporter and a storyteller, and you have 1 minute to take notes and 2 minutes to speak. The main thing you will see on the card is bullet points. In front of you here, you can see some of the general topics. The answers, or rather the questions, will always vary. That is, they will change slightly, but these are some of the main general topics that are used time and time again. Here you can see a model question. So we really just kind of got our feet wet with the introductory questions on part 1, short answers. Now you're going to dive in. And this is kind of a structured approach. If you want to go freeform, by all means do so. This is the main course, the hearty helping of goodness that we're going to indulge in. Yes, it's highly nutritious as well. The first thing we want to do when we see these W's is to rearrange the points if we need to. Hopefully we don't, but we want to arrange them, put the when, the where, the who first. So we want to arrange the points to be a reporter. Secondly, we're going to talk about the why and the what with detail as a storyteller. So you can see the model question that we're going to work with here today, describing a long car journey. So in this 1 minute, what you're writing down basically is based on the who, where, when. You're just writing down your key vocabulary. You're writing what you're doing is you're writing your key points in key vocabulary. Because I tried this out several times after doing it with my students for many years, and I found that you only have 1 minute. So you have to write abbreviations, you have to write short form. But you're writing out your key points that match the W bullet points in your best vocabulary. On that note as well, again, your best vocabulary, which means some even abbreviations of idiomatic expressions, like we have like free spirit, things like that. R&R, which means rest and relaxation. So I just put R&R, and it's just a trigger, right? It's just something to remind us, and we can refer to these notes as we're going through it. Just take a glance now and then, because you have your notes to look at, right? And just make sure that you aren't missing any major points. And yes, you are focused on one story. There are various approaches out there you will hear, but I think in 2 minutes, focusing on one story is enough of a challenge. So the where and the who is really what we're working on in the first minute of our answer. These are all our reporter style points. We want to establish this information as early as possible. You can mix up the tenses all the way through, and it's important to keep that in mind, definitely, because it's gonna be increasing or satisfying the grammatical range evaluation component. It was right in the heart of last summer when my old high school buddy Johnny called me up out of the blue and said, "Hey man, are you up for an epic road trip?" At first I hesitated because I had to work the next day, but I called in sick, and we set out the next morning around sunrise. Our destination was Toronto, downtown Toronto. But first I had to go a little bit north of North Bay to pick Johnny up. So overall we had about a 5-hour car ride ahead of us. Johnny is a unique individual with an amazing and a very interesting sense of fashion. But the main reason he's an ideal sidekick for a road trip is that he's really a free spirit. This means that wherever we go, there's always adventure, because he really doesn't care what anyone thinks of him, and he also has an amazing sense of humor, which really makes the time fly. You can see we've used the when, we've used the who, and of course the what in general, right? And the where. We've established those in our first minute now. Now it's time to get into the what, to get into the why, or the how if it's on the card. Second minute, you're really building the answer, and that's why you want to get into the storytelling part, because you want to give the impact of something, talk about the emotions and the feelings, the importance and things like that. Initially, we planned on just parking downtown, but when we got there, we couldn't find any spaces. So we just drove around all morning using the GPS, heading up the secondhand clothing stores. This was Johnny's main motivation for the trip, because he's a selection in his hometown, which is really a rural area, is next to nothing. He said to me, "Buddy, I know we're gonna find a treasure trove." Sure enough, he found some incredible vintage threads. In the afternoon, we decided to bite the bullet, and we paid like $50 for the all-day parking. And Johnny said, "Hey, let's hop the ferry and check out the amusement park. So we headed over to Center Island, and it was really a blast just going on all the thrill rides, like the bumper cars. We pigged out on a massive funnel cake. And I still have this picture in my mind of Johnny strutting around in his clashing polka dot shirt and striped pants, just like a peacock. By the time I finally rolled into my driveway after dropping Johnny off, it must have been almost like 2 a.m, and we were both totally sacked. Since I hadn't seen Johnny in like forever, it was an ideal way for us to kind of rekindle our bonds. Above and beyond that, it really helped me to alleviate some of the heavy burden that I had been carrying around from my job and kind of refresh myself so that I can attack it and go back and do things in an even more productive way. It was right in the heart of last summer when my old high school buddy Johnny called me out of the blue and said, "Hey man, are you up for an epic road trip?" We set out around the crack of dawn the next morning, and our final destination was downtown Toronto, which was roughly a 5-hour drive. Johnny is a super unique individual. He's a real free spirit. This means that whenever we get together, there's always adventure. Initially, our plan was to just park right downtown Toronto, but we quickly found out that there were no spaces. So we turned on the GPS and ended up like cruising around to all these vintage clothing shops. Johnny said to me, "Hey, don't worry, I'm gonna find a treasure trove." Sure enough, he located this one store that had a whole bunch of really, really wild vintage threads that he scored for next to nothing. In the afternoon, we decided to hop the ferry and we actually bit the bullet and paid like $50 for the underground parking. Then we hopped the ferry and headed over to the historic Center Island Park. It was really a blast there because we got to go on all the thrill rides like the bumper cars. We pigged out on a massive funnel cake. And I could still picture Johnny strutting around the park like a peacock in his clashing striped pants and polka dot shirt. By the time I dropped him off and pulled into my driveway, I think it was around like 2 a.m, and we were both totally sacked, but it was well worth the effort. Not only did Johnny get to find the clothes he was looking for, but above and beyond that, it was a real chance for us to reunite and kind of reforge our bonds together. I had been feeling and carrying a heavy burden from my work as of late, and it was a wonderful chance for me to just kind of alleviate some of that pressure. We talked about this in the fluency video. If you want to keep everything flowing, but you don't know what to say, you don't know the reasons for why on any topic, you can always talk about advantages, disadvantages, likes, dislikes, or talk about the effect something has had. Express your feelings or the importance of something. It never fails, guys, believe me. The next thing we really want to be aware of is using those mixed grammar tenses: present simple, past or present or future continuous. Keep mixing it up and you're going to satisfy this grammatical range evaluation component. Another thing that will help raise or increase the mark in terms of grammar is to have a complex grammar structure. And there's really a couple ways we can do this. One is mainly to actually just rely on the subordinate conjunctions. We can use those whenever, since, although. These are great ways to start your sentence with a dependent clause that relies on another clause. So once you create these multiple clause sentences, you're getting more complex and your mark is increasing. If you want a great acronym to help you remember coordinating conjunctions, now coordinating conjunctions are a little different because they're connecting two main clauses so that you don't have like a comma splice. You can use the acronym Fanboys. Fanboys, my favorite band. And if you're putting these in with the subordinate conjunctions, you'll definitely have better grammatical range for sure. So practice doing this and doing it naturally. Our final tip, and you can play around with this for sure. You don't have to use it, and I will say, if you are not comfortable putting in a one-sentence conclusion or introduction, don't do it. On test day, you don't want to experiment or take any risks whatsoever. If you're not 100% sure in your heart that you can do this comfortably and naturally, don't play around with it, okay? But while we're practicing, it's a fun thing to do, and I really encourage it. You want to just come up with a one-sentence intro that kind of summarizes the key ideas. So for me, it's like, we need some R&R. We got to drop everything, step away from the work and the studies, and we owe it to ourselves to let our spirit kind of breathe. So you can see here we have a summary of some of those main points and an introduction that satisfies that. In this chaotic life that we lead, sometimes we need to just step away from the stress and give ourselves time to rejuvenate, right? Rejuvenate means to re-energize. Strong conclusion sentences, if you're going to do them, and they're wonderful practice for your writing as well. We'll get there. They give an important thought. They stress the important message, and they can also look towards the future. And you can do that with any topic whatsoever. I like to start my conclusions with overall or ultimately when I'm writing. Overall, this road trip was absolutely necessary for me to alleviate some heavy stress that I've been feeling in my life. For our daily exercise, practicing doing all these things naturally, and I'd love to hear your feedback, guys. I think this will give you some solid techniques that you can use for any card. Try it out. Number 1, take advantage of the 1 minute. Write down your key points in abbreviated short form vocabulary, your best vocabulary that matches those W's. Make sure you get the where, the when, the who, and you're going to say the what automatically, but get the key information first. Establish that early. Be a reporter in the first minute of your answer. And that takes us on to the study tip. That's what we're talking about. You're building these notes to do 2 things. Be a reporter and be a storyteller. In the first minute, be a reporter. Establish the key information. Get it out there quickly. Okay? Then we get to be a storyteller. Stir up emotions. Talk about feelings, talk about impact or effect, whatever you need to do to express things in a colorful way. And you're definitely going to rely on the how, the what, and the why to do this. You'll see on the card the why is almost always last. If it's not, talk about it last, because it's your most effective way of organizing these points. All the while, guys, keep in mind the mixed grammar structure, different tenses, and complex structure as well by using subordinate or coordinating conjunctions. And finally, play around with the one-sentence introductions and conclusions. Why not? Keep in mind, guys, while you're doing this daily exercise, record yourself for sure. You need to get comfortable with that 2-minute window. Record yourself when you're taking notes and record your 2-minute answer so you can balance your points within that time frame. Very important. Choose your most meaningful why. In this case, we don't want to wreck the momentum of a story that is about friendship and relaxation by talking about why we selected a particular mode of transit. Another thing to keep in mind is that you will be timed 2 minutes precisely. That means your goal is to try to speak as close to 2 minutes as possible. Do not fear if you get cut off on your last sentence. It's much better to have that than to come up way short. You're given a minute to take notes and you're given 2 minutes to speak. You want to make the most of that time. All right, that about sums things up for today's video. Put all these tips into play, and I'm very sure you will make the most of your IELTS Speaking Part 2 opportunity. Keep in mind, guys, the tests are stressful things, but they don't have to be. It's really your perspective, how you look at it. Don't look at a test as an opportunity to fail. Put your energy into doing your best. You've put in the practice hours and you want to really make the most of this opportunity. So look at it in a positive way and think about how you can put these techniques into play and get that 7 or higher score, because you've earned it. Draw inspiration from here or go online and get your own questions. It really doesn't matter. The most important thing is to practice these tips regularly. If you have any questions, leave your comments, talk to me. If you found this beneficial to you, click that subscribe button, hit that bell. I'm gonna keep doing a lot of these videos, and I know this one took a while, but I really wanted to hone some of these skills and refine them for you. For me, teaching is a great contribution to life. Helping my students improve and open doors for their future is just, it brings me a great amount of satisfaction. Leave your comments, talk to me, guys. I'd love to hear from you. I know we'll meet again very soon. All the best. Take care.